What do fortune tellers, bowling alleys, red sneakers, and rooftop soirees have in common? Per usual, another episode of Bling Empire. Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today I am coming to you all with another episode of Bling Empire, Season 1, Episode 4, Beverly Hills Heartbreak. So we open up the episode with Christine and Kane meeting up with Kelly. She is introducing them to her mom. And Kelly is very grateful to her mom because when they were living in China, they had a lot of privilege and a lot of access. However, coming over to the United States, her mom had to work 3 jobs just to stay afloat. So she's very grateful to her mom for all the sacrifices she's made. And we also see that Kelly has invited a fortune teller named Master Yang just because there are a lot of changes going on in everyone's lives and she would like everyone to hear what he has to say. And can I say that I really loved hearing them speak Mandarin? I have such a respect and appreciation for people who speak multiple languages and just kind of flow from one to the other. So they were switching back and forth from Mandarin to English and it was so fluid and it was something that I really enjoyed in that scene. So Kane decides to ask if he'll be successful in Los Angeles and Master Yang lets him know that the money is rolling in and that he's going to be a boss in the future. Christine, of course, wants to know if she'll have any more children in the future. And Master Yang is like, well, you have 1 child already, right? Well, if no one interferes, you'll have 5 more. And Christina's like, her? She was not expecting that answer. She's like, yeah, I don't know if that's going to work. Of course, Kelly asks about her love life, and Master Yang lets her know that it's okay to keep looking because there are other men out there for you. And I was like, okay, I mean, there it is. There's your cue. And Kane was just like, you didn't need a fortune teller to tell you that. You can ask Cherie and she'll even tell you that. Kelly also slides in that Andrew's financial situation isn't that great. And I was like, oh, that makes a whole lot of sense to me. Lastly, Master Yang lets her know that she needs to find a man with a water element to him. And Kane is like, oh, well, that's me. Okay, there we go. Problem solved. Just get with me and we good. So next, we see everyone hanging out at this really cool vintage bowling alley, and everyone is just hanging out and having a good time. We see Kevin, we see Kane, we see Jaime, and we also see Guy and Kim, which Kevin is not too happy about. And what's really interesting is that before Kim decides to bowl, she takes out some wipes and she's wiping down the different bowling balls because she's like, you know how many people's fingers and hands have been in this? And I'm like, oh, the foreshadowing. Anna arrives with her son and her son's girlfriend, and surprisingly, Guy walks up and he immediately apologizes to Anna. He feels bad, that shouldn't have happened, and he just really wanted to make it right. And Anna understands, you know, she's forgiving, but for her, it was more so about the audacity of Kim thinking, you can just walk up in my house and there aren't going to be any consequences. And so Guy is thinking, well, you know what, we're good, let's try to work things out with Kim. And so, of course, they all sit down, and it's more of the same. Kim is taking no accountability. Why is it all on me? Why is everyone mad at me? It's not just me, yada, yada, yada. And Kevin is just like, look, it's just about being accountable. It's having some remorse, acknowledge it, apologize, and we can just move on. But Kim is really determined to be on the wrong side of right, so that conversation doesn't really go anywhere. But then Kevin decides to take the initiative and be the bigger person and work things out with Kim just so they can move forward. I cannot say I would have done the same thing, especially after you throw a drink on me. But I can understand the sentiment of, hey, let's just all be cool, let's get along, no tension, no drama. And then Kim does actually apologize for throwing the drink on his jacket, so all is well. And then we close out the scene with Anna bowling a strike, and I was just like, man, I don't know what it is about Anna, but it seems like she can do just a little bit of everything. We jump over to the Chius, and they are currently looking through a home, and they're just looking to find a home that is near a desirable preschool for baby G. The additional children conversation comes back up, and initially it's more of the same, but then Christine drops a bomb. This whole supposed fertility issue with Christine wasn't even her issue. It was Dr. Chiu's. And I was like, wow. So all of that she suffered and dealt with was on account of her being so devoted to Dr. Chiu and her not wanting him to be humiliated and embarrassed. I was just like, and I feel like that really says a lot about her as a wife and as a person, but I think almost at the same time, it's not fair that she had to deal with that and she never said anything. So I think that's unfortunate. And it kind of made me side-eye Dr. Chiu because I'm like, how could you let your wife go through that? And Dr. Chiu does admit that he had to go through 2 surgeries just for them to have baby G. So he acknowledges that it was his issue. And for Christine, it's just this whole surrogacy thing is just opening up the PTSD, the criticism, the peer pressure, and all of that again, which I totally get. And thankfully, Dr. Chiu gets that also. You should never have had to go through that. I should have said something. I could have put a stop to it. So I absolutely apologize for subjecting you to that and not doing more to help you out. And I was like, okay. Well, at least he does acknowledge that. And I can see that he really does love Christine. And at least he could acknowledge that that was a huge mistake that he made. And I love that he did that. I love that he acknowledged her pain. He acknowledged his fault, how he contributed to the situation. And even when it comes down to the surrogacy, he realizes how much that in itself will affect her. So he was like, you know what? We can put that on the back burner. As a matter of fact, let's just take it off the stove. And I was like, okay, that's what I like to see. Like him really being there for his wife and just saying like, you know, it doesn't matter what I want. I recognize what I put you through, so we're gonna do what you want and what puts you in the best mental and emotional space. I was like, there we go. And this is just another example of why I really enjoy this show because, of course, Christine, in the grand scheme of things, you could argue she's kind of an antagonist. You could argue she's not the most likable on the show. But we also do see the human side of her beyond the money and the wealth and the extravaganzas and all that. We are also dealing with someone who has trauma and who has pain and who has a great marriage and relationship with her husband, and they're working through things and working through issues just like everyone else. Yes, in a different tax bracket, but still real issues nonetheless. And I love that we're able to see those kind of dynamics throughout. We jump over to Kane's house, and of course he's looking over this massive wall of shoes that he has. And I was looking at some of those shoes and they were really, really nice. I think Kane overall has a really cool personal style. The outfits he wears, especially like his shirts and some of his shoes, I was just like, we on the same page because a lot of that stuff I would wear myself. Kevin stops by and we find out that he has done a genetic test because he wants to know what his ethnic background is. They make a bet about the percentage and the ethnicity, and if Kevin wins, he gets a pair of Kane's shoes, and if Kane is right, he will get Kevin's favorite pair of red sneakers. So Kevin guesses 75%, Kane guesses 76%, and Kane wins by a 1% margin. Kevin, of course, is mad, but gotta give up the shoes, bruh. We see a very random scene of Kelly and Andrew in the studio. She mentions that Andrew does some managing of a couple of producers and artists, and I'm like, okay. And the conversation is more the same. There's gaslighting, there's just a whole lot of manipulation in the conversation. I'm just like, ugh. And at some point, Kelly realizes, you know what? I don't like the way you're speaking to me. I need to disengage. I'm out. And there's not a whole lot more I can say about them. It's just like that whole dynamic is just not it. So Kane, Kevin, and Kim all meet up, all names that start with K. And of course, Kevin is having to deliver his end of the bargain, his favorite red shoes. And for Kane, it's like, look, I don't care about the shoes, but you know, we made a bargain. You gotta uphold your end of the deal. So for Kevin, that genetic test was just a little crack in the door. And now he's wanting to learn a lot more about his biological parents. He ends up calling an adoption agency and he finds out that his parents broke up and then his grandparents took care of him, but then they realized it would be best just to give him up for adoption. I was just like, and that has to be rough. I imagine that someone who is adopted, of course, in your mind, you're just kind of like, well, what was it about me to where you felt like you couldn't continue to take care of me, you know? And then the difficulty with the adopted parents is that you don't want to feel like you are betraying them because they're the ones who have raised you and they've taken care of you, but you also want to know where that other part of you comes from. So yeah, it's a tough situation and I totally empathize. And Kim can relate to that because she wasn't adopted, but when her parents broke up, her dad was just out of the picture. And she hasn't heard from him since she was really young. It's like she wants to reach out and contact him, but because she knows that he knows how to contact her, it's just like, well, why haven't you reached out for me? So once again, kind of a catch-22, lose-lose situation. So Kelly and Andrew have a therapy session, and listen, there's not a whole lot more I can say here, although I did think this scene was interesting because it said a whole lot more about how they both perceive their relationship. Kelly knows that their dynamic is very toxic and very draining and that it's probably time to step away. And then Andrew is saying like, you know, I feel like we have a beautiful relationship, and the therapist is like, look, things are not going to get better for you until you decide to live in reality. He's like, well, I only live in reality. She's like, you just said you have a beautiful relationship, and the person you're in a relationship with just said that this is toxic, unhealthy, and I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Where's the reality? So Kelly ends up having a conversation with the therapist by herself, and the therapist is like, look, this can only go one of two ways. The two of you go home tonight and get buck wild in the bedroom to distract from your issues, which was very frank, but she's right. Or you take the initiative to remove yourself from this dynamic and work on healing yourself and moving forward. Because otherwise, this is just a cycle that is going to continue. So Kelly decides it's time to move on. And it is about time. Whew. I mean, those two. Mm-mm. Yeah, we need to be done with that. So Kevin's mom, Teresa, stops in and visits him, and they're just hanging out, having some good conversation. And Kevin, of course, is afraid to broach the whole subject of finding his biological parents. But Teresa is completely understanding. She's like, yeah, I would want to find them too. And then for me, it's more selfish reasons, because I want them to see what a great man they missed out on raising. And it's just another reminder for Kevin that those are his parents, regardless of anything else. So it is an emotional conversation, but it's a happy, healing conversation as well. Then we fast forward to the Hollywood Hills. Kevin is celebrating his first year in Los Angeles, and where better to do it than on the top of this beautiful mansion overlooking the entire city. I was looking at the views, I was like, oh, this whole rooftop scene, like, yes, I was absolutely loving it. I know this is probably a weird thing to say, but a goal of mine is to at least go to one rooftop party at some mansion overlooking the city just like that. It doesn't matter where it is, but at least once in my life, I want to be able to do that. A good friend of his named Keith is there, and he is someone who was very welcoming and encouraging to him during his early days in Los Angeles, and he is the one who is providing the mansion for the event to take place. So everyone except Kane and Anna is there. Kane is sick, so he couldn't make it, and we're assuming that Anna might have been busy or had something else to do. Kelly is the last one to arrive, but everyone is noting how good she looks, and she's really glowing, and she lets everyone know, me and Andrew, we've broken up. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, wow. Everyone's pretty shocked. But Kim was like, all right, girl. She gives her a high five. So it's clear that Kim was not here for Andrew, and we on the same page, Kim. And Kevin, of course, is being extra. He's like, hey, let's celebrate the single life. I'm just like, okay. Not really the time and place for that, but regardless, Kelly is now officially single. But then we do see Anna. She arrives much later on in the party, and she and Kelly have a conversation. And for Anna, she just wants to know that Kelly is okay. And Kelly knows that it hasn't hit her all yet, but having the support and encouragement of her friends is really helping out. And Anna lets her know, you have one life, you have to live it for the fullest. Nobody else can live it for you. So please make the best decisions for you and your well-being. And Kelly is like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And Anna even offers to fly her out to Paris again so they can redo the experience so she can have the full experience without all that other mess. So I was like, listen. Oh my gosh, these friendships and these relationships and all this consideration. It was really awesome. I really enjoy seeing all these different friendships in this friend group. It was really nice. So Kelly gives her a hug. She lets her know I love you and thank you for your support. And I was just like, man, I get the best vibes from this group of friends. I love the support. I love the encouragement. I love the wisdom and all of that. And just seeing them really be there for each other. I absolutely love it. So everyone sits down to dinner and Kevin makes his toast to his 1 year in Los Angeles. He also acknowledges that he is sorry about Kelly's situation, but that friendship is always important. I'm like, I'm sure that's not all that's important when it comes to Kelly, but you know what? I'll leave it alone. Let's not ruin the moment. And in the end, everyone comes together and toasts the beginning of a great new year. And that closes out episode 4, Beverly Hills Heartbreak. I know I've said it before, but the camaraderie and the conversations and the real issues and the real lives between these friends, it's not scripted, it's not silly, it's not over the top or contrived. It all feels very genuine. And I really love it. I love the vibe. I love the feeling that this show gives me. It's just very relaxing, very escapist, really solid. So yeah, another really solid episode, and I can't wait to see what happens in the next one. So once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.